Hi, everyone. My name is Kirk Bachman, and welcome back to The Ultimate Dish. Today, I'm speaking with Chad White, an award-winning chef who started his bright culinary journey in the United States Navy and worked his way to top chef. After his naval career, White dove headfirst into the prestigious kitchens of Prince of Wales and 1500 Ocean. He also earned the title of Seafood Maverick of San Diego while partnering with Sea Rocket Bistro. In no time, he gained tremendous recognition for his distinct innovation and was featured on Travel Channel's Bizarre Foods. Chef Chad also founded La Justina in Tijuana, Mexico, and Craft Pizza Company in San Diego before competing on Bravo TV's Top Chef Season 13. Since then, he's opened several acclaimed restaurants like Zona Blanca Ceviche Bar, where he's received the award of Best New Restaurant and Chef of the Year for 5 years running. He also launched High Tide Lobster Bar and TT Old Iron Brewery and Barbecue, which was named Best New Restaurant and Best Barbecue by the Inlander magazine, as well as Unomas Taco Shop. Chef Chad has also received a semi-finalist nomination for James Beard Best Chef Northwest Region Award Spring of 2020 and 2022. Listen as we chat about food service careers for military personnel, what it takes to be a reputable restaurateur, and how collaboration can unlock success. And there he is. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. You could tell I'm a little exhausted. What a bio. What a resume. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really good. My days have been filled with a lot lately with our son and trying to get him home from the hospital. So juggling restaurants and trying to find time to be crib side with him has been a challenge, but it's been one that I've been excited to face.
As you should. That's beautiful, man. I want to say first, thank you for your service to our country, and huge congratulations from Escoffier and myself on your new baby boy. And based on everything I've read over the last couple of days, you are one busy individual.
Yeah, I don't like too much free time.
Yeah. So you're in Spokane, and it kind of my old stomping grounds. Went to the University of Oregon, so I was up there a couple of times. Watched the Zags play a few times. Children of the Sun, right? Native name for Spokane. A little bigger than Boulder. I think you've got about 200,000 people, and beautiful part of the country, right? Not too far from Sandpoint, right? Sandpoint and Coeur d'Alene as well.
Yeah, about an hour away from Sandpoint and about 35 minutes from Coeur d'Alene.
You spend much time over there? You get some recreation?
As much as I can. I tend to, during my free time, if I'm not traveling, I'm definitely in the outdoors camping.
I love it. You know, one other thing that I read about, which was just crazy. I had no idea. You know, we're coming up on Father's Day, right? So I think pretty sure that the first Father's Day ever was in Spokane, right? Is that a true fact, or is that?
No, that's a true fact. Father's Day was founded in Spokane, Washington.
It's unbelievable. I'm also a huge sports fan. We talked a little bit before the show. I did not realize. I'm a Zags fan. I'm a Mark Few fan. But I had no idea that Spokane was Hooptown, USA.
Yeah,
because of the big tournament. Yeah. Have you been to that?
We do a thing called Hoop Fest every year, and it is the largest 4-on-4 basketball tournament in the world. I know China has a very large one, but it's not like ours. So it's pretty cool to have that here in Spokane.
And so I'm not even going to ask Wazoo or U of W. You're Gonzaga all the way.
Zags.
Goes. So let's come back to the work-life balance and how's it changed since the little one came along.
I mean, I think, I feel well. Work-life balance has always been an interesting thing for me to hear. I pour my heart and soul into things that I love, and I love my career, and I love my family. And so finding time to spend with them, and and focus on work. There's always going to be a challenge. It doesn't matter if it's a 9 to 5 or you're like me that get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and start my day early and get home late at night. I just find pockets of time to spend with my family throughout the day. And it works great for me. I don't need a lot of sleep. 5 hours a night is about as much as I can handle. If I'm on my back any longer than that, I start to hurt. So I like to be very active. I'm up and going, whether I need to be anywhere or not. My internal alarm clock goes off.
Yeah, makes total sense. I find your story so intriguing, because I read in an article somewhere that that you actually hated working in the industry and in the kitchen, and now you can't get enough of it. Now you love it. What was the trigger? What changed?
Well, part of it was when I had the situation where I had made that comment was it was my first naval vessel that I was on. The kitchen environment was, I didn't have a great introduction to it. I had worked in food service before I joined the military. I was a dishwasher, which, not the most glamorous job, but I did it very well. I was the best dishwasher. I made sure I was the best dishwasher there. But I had this conversation with my mother. I was on the forecastle of the USS Benfold, and I was just like, man, this is nothing like cooking that I've ever seen before. A lot of it, and not to bash on the military at all, was just we were reheating food. It wasn't, there wasn't this like gourmet experience. And I had walked into a kitchen. They're like, hey, we need you to peel all these potatoes. And there was like 9 cases of potatoes. And so I'm peeling it with a peeler. And, by the I get to the last case and my hands are bleeding and I'm, bandaging myself up, putting gloves on and all this stuff. And this, petty officer walks in and he goes, hey, moron, that thing right next to you that looks like R2D2 is a peeler. There's a sandpaper on the inside. It would have been done hours ago. And I was like, they handed me a peeler and I went to work. So yeah, I wasn't enjoying myself in that first part. But my mom had said something very remarkable, and she had recognized I was an artist. And said, hey, listen, I'm not sure what you don't get about food and how it relates to things that you love, but food is art. A round white plate is a canvas, paint on it with food. And I kind of had this, a few more conversations of back and forth. Mom, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. And then she followed through with sending me a bunch of, books. Bobby Flay was one of them with his Mesa Grill. And then Jose Andres, which both of those guys had very eclectic plating and the least amount of words in a cookbook. And so she knew what to send me and followed through. And I listened to her, and then I started cooking on the weekends and really studying food techniques and whatnot. And then I started to really fall in love with it. And the more I fell in love with it, the more opportunity I got within the military to go on and cook in better kitchens rather than just cooking for the general mess. I was now cooking in the wardroom and cooking for chiefs, which then I could be creative.
That's a beautiful story. In terms of coming back to the artistry, what were you interested in back there? Other than cooking, were you painting? Were you doing music?
I was painting. I did a lot of illustration, charcoal.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother is an oil painter. A very accomplished oil painter. And so we would spend a lot of our times either in the kitchen or we'd spend it behind an easel, painting to Bob Ross or whatever.
Oh, no way. I love that. Yeah. I love that.
Painting pretty little trees.
That's a great story. Let's go back a little further then. What was the catalyst at the time then for enlisting in the military?
Well, I was working at the Doubletree Golf Resort and the Buckle at the same time. And I had woken up and my brother was watching the news, and I took a look at what was going on. And this was during 9/11. Definitely filled me with a bit of fear and anger and frustration. And I decided to just go down to the recruiter's office and sign up. My first thought was I'm joining the Marines and I'm going to fight. And then the line was really long and I knew I talked myself out of it. So I got in a short line and that was the Navy. And yeah, I shipped out January of 2002, and then went to culinary school at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas after boot camp. So it was pretty quick.
Was that serendipitous, or you were like, "Hey, I can cook.
No,
I'm going to join." No,
not at all. No. No, that was the only job that had an actual trade school attached to it. So if you go in as an undesignated service member, you have to wait almost 2 years before you can take a test to then apply for a position, right? And the test, depending on how well you do on it, will put you in these different areas on what job you can actually do. Well, I scored the lowest possible score to earn a position as a cook. So it was either going to be an airman, seaman, or fireman, and have to wait 2 years to become anything.
Yeah.
Which would have kept me in the military quite a bit longer, or I could be a cook. And part of the thing that got me to be a cook was I was working at a hotel at the time. They said that MSs, which are called mess specialists, now they call them culinary specialists, are in charge of the barracks. So I forgot, I stopped listening to anything that said anything about cooking and only listened to the part where they were talking about hotels. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to work in hotels. And so I signed up, and I think I worked in the barracks for a total of 6 months while I was going through a reconstruction on my left knee because I couldn't be on a ship. And it's nothing like working in a hotel.
Yeah. Is this where the Hotel Coronado comes in?
Yeah. So after being in the Navy for around almost 4 years, I got an opportunity due to my performance in the military to do an externship at the Hotel del Coronado. And while I was there, they had us, work in different departments, and they put me in garde manger for banquets. So I was carving, 12 to 15 cases of fruit. At the end of the day, and 8 hours, they're like, all right, you can go home. And I'm like, well, no, I typically work from, 5 to 6. And they said, well, this is the state of California. You can't do that. And I said, I'm government property. I pretty much can work as much as you guys want to work me. Can you at least take me down to the fine dining kitchen so that way I can, experience, what a real kitchen is like? And they agreed to it. And so I got to work at the Prince of Wales. And the next day I came in for the externship. The chef de cuisine there offered me a job, and the executive chef of the hotel agreed. And I put in my application for an early exit from the military and took a position as a chef de partie.
I mean, I love the story because it kind of just kind of fell together perfectly. Are you an advocate for that sort of path, given your access to other military personnel or anyone who's kind of entertaining, joining the military and then trying to find their path? Do you have a good story to tell? Is it inspirational? Certainly worked out well for you, right?
Yeah, the military provided me was an extreme level of discipline and work ethic.
Yeah.
And that's really where I shined when I got to the hotel. Is there were cooks who were arguably already burnt out. And they just weren't performing the way that I was performing. And so I was able to kind of climb the ranks. The same thing went in the military. I mean, you're either willing to work hard or you're not willing to work hard. And if you're not willing to work hard for something, then you should probably go and do something that you are willing to work hard for. But if people are in the military already, they have tools and they have work ethic and discipline that a lot of people don't have already in the workplace. So if they stay focused and they don't get into the BS, they can really go a long ways and in a very short period of time. So yeah, I 100%, I think that military personnel in the workplace, especially in restaurants, I think, if I could hire more, I would.
It's interesting. Everything I've read, people obviously in our industry commend you specifically um, for your work ethic and your discipline, of course, your charisma as well. But I'm interested. I have several friends, and we have several students that are vets, right? Big piece of our student body. One of my best friends in the world is a certified master chef. His name's Ron DeSantis. He's a Marine, and is one of the most disciplined and structured individuals that I'd ever met. Do you believe, kind of a loaded question, is that the foundation that the military provides? I mean, it seems like it goes hand in hand, right? Because the industry, the kitchen requires, all the way back to the days of Escoffier, it requires that sort of discipline, command of your station, understanding who's in charge. Yes, chef, that kind of thing. And it really seems that the military sort of sets a person up almost serendipitously for a great career in this particular craft.
Yeah, I think the kitchen in general runs parallel with military, right? From a brigade standpoint, a rank standpoint, discipline.
Yeah,
you're in a high stress environment, and in a high stress environment where things are happening around you rapidly, and there are obstacles or opportunities, however you want to look at it, that have to be solved in a moment's notice. Great training, discipline, loyalty, right? Following instructions. Those are all very important things. In the military, if you have an enemy that is charging, you can't have somebody that just decides to go do their own thing. There's a part where it's like, you can't think too much, right? Like there's a reason why you were trained a certain way. So you need to use the best of your training to handle the situation. And your training has been specific for the situation. And I feel like that aligns, right? In the kitchen, I've trained my staff a certain way, that they all work the line, they communicate a certain way. Just even from abbreviating food things, or, for instance, we make sure everyone cuts tape in our kitchen.
It instead of tearing it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like what's the problem with tearing tape? Well, when it's not clean, but it's not about how it looks. It's about a standard. And so if I can trust that you'll cut the tape properly, I can trust that you won't mess up a recipe that has 15 steps to it, or a pickup on the foie gras, right? Which is a very delicate thing to prepare. So if I know you have the attention to detail for the tape, I know you have done attention to detail to either work a position in my kitchen or manage the team that works in our kitchen. So yeah, there's a bit of the military, and I will tell you, crossing decks from military to civilian life was a learning curve. It took me about 4 or 5 years for me to kind of change how I led, because I led from a place of command. Now I lead from a place of mentorship and guidance, and in a very different way. But there was a period where, man, I was a hot one.
Well, but I love that though. You're self-aware. The mentor and the guidance still allows you to find the standards, the end result you're looking for, without lowering your standards. You're just approaching it in a different way. I love that analogy. Let's fast forward and have some fun with the seafood Maverick of San Diego. I I absolutely love this. How did you develop your love? You mentioned Jose Andres. Love that. How'd you develop your love for eclectic this kind of Baja influenced food. And I know it's a culture down in San Diego. My brother-in-law is from San Diego, and there's definitely a cool culture down there. How did that resonate with? How did food resonate with you?
The seafood Maverick thing, really kind of where that came about was I was working hand in hand with a fishmonger named Tommy Gomes. And he has his own TV show now called The Fishmonger. Okay. And he was really adamant about finding uses for the scraps of fish that were unwanted by the chefs in our community. So he started giving me things like, cod semen sacks, or the broken pieces of uni, or black cod liver, the spines of swordfish. I started to play with these things, right? I was, hey, you're giving me free products. I'll do some R&D on them. And I found out that I could take cod liver and, dry it out a little bit with some salt, rinse it, pat it dry, and pan sear it just like foie gras. And I could serve it the exact same way as seared foie gras. I could do it on a piece of brioche with some sort of candied nut crumble, a gastrique, some pickled fruit and whatnot. And a lot of people couldn't even tell the difference. Was pretty exciting. The broken pieces of sea urchin, I would make pasta out of it. I would make sauces out of it. I would blend it with vanilla and sugar and make ice cream out of it. Actually, at one point I was making enough to be sold to Japan from Catalina Offshore, which is a food purveyor or a seafood purveyor in San Diego that ships a lot of uni to Japan. And I was making it by the 5-gallon batch at a time. It was pretty fun. And also serving it in restaurants. But then, the swordfish spine, if you cut between the knuckles of the spine, there's jelly in there. And so we would take a demitasse spoon and scoop that out and put it on a salt rock with a lime wedge and some espelette. And it was really exciting. And I'd often try to find ways to serve live fish to people as well. Which freaked some people out, but it was exciting for others and very exciting for Andrew Zimmern. He thought it was a lot of fun. So we ended up
a
little bit of a feature on Bizarre Foods, which was
yeah. What so as I hear you talk, I it's pretty clear to me, but if you had an elevator speech, I'd love to hear you explain in your words, what's your approach to seafood, maybe all food, and how does it differ from other chefs?
Yeah, well, I think there's plenty of chefs out there that are just like me. I think my approach comes from how do I best utilize this product that grows on our earth or that is harvested by our ranchers to the best of its use. Mm-hmm. So, opening a restaurant in Mexico taught me a lot of things about not being wasteful. In American kitchens, we tend to purchase, the perfectly cut tenderloin that's already been peeled, or, having a fillet come in instead of breaking down a whole fish. A lot of that is due to, our cost of labor and cost of goods and trying to streamline our stuff, which many, culinary students will learn down the road that being a business owner and being a chef often intersect. Mm-hmm. They can definitely run parallel, but they often intersect. And so there's some decisions that you have to make as a business owner to make sure your business thrives. And then there are decisions that you make as a chef and trying to uphold the integrity of your craft. But I think where I learned the most in Mexico was almost every bit of our vegetable can be utilized for something. So if we're peeling our carrots, what can I do with all the carrot peels, right? Can I make a carrot vinegar? Can I make an ash? Can I make a shrub for cocktails? So I got really, I guess the best way to put this, I really geeked out on finding the most amount of uses for an ingredient possible. And it took me down some rabbit holes that were pretty wild. But I think the resourcefulness is really kind of what has allowed me to stand out.
How you comment on geeking out? I'm geeking out on you just listening to God, the passion behind your words. I mean, we talk to a lot of people, but often days we don't get into the deep conversations about waste not, right? And turning leftover veggies into ash. And I can just really appreciate where you're coming from as a practitioner of the craft. Escoffier would be proud. That leads me to kind of an interesting question. If you had to put a tag on yourself, if you had to define yourself by a technique or an ingredient or a method, what would that be?
I don't know if there's an ingredient or if there is a technique. I think I'm eclectic. My mind wanders. I try a lot of new things. People ask me all the time, like, what's your favorite dish? And it's such a hard question to answer. Sure. And the best answer I feel like I've given people, in my perspective, I don't think they like this answer, but it's the dish I haven't created yet.
Oh, that's a great answer. Because you're pushing forward. You're looking into the future. It's a great answer.
Well, it's exciting, right? It's like if you drive down a new road, let's say you like to wander, you like to go off-roading or hiking, the new trail is always the most exciting.
Yeah.
It's the unknown that's ahead of you. And I've been in this industry long enough that I can't guarantee that everything that I cook is going to be amazing, right? But I can guarantee that I'm going to learn something through the process of cooking something I've never cooked before, or using a technique that I've used on something else that I didn't think to use on this specific ingredient, and learning something from it. Those are the things that are exciting for me. So, the unknown is where I get stoked.
I love that. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, being the San Diego chef. Do you hang or talk to Malarkey much anymore? He was on the show not too long ago.
Yeah. Brian and I have a funny relationship. I like Brian a lot. I respect him. He's a great chef. He's done very well for himself through not only his culinary career and his expertise, but just his ability to pivot and do very well in showbiz. And he's a very exuberant young fella. But he's from Oregon.
And, he's from Eastern Oregon. Yeah.
And so, he and I kind of were like neck and neck for seafood chefs in San Diego for a really long time. And I started getting a bunch of accolades and, arguably being called the best seafood chef in San Diego. And he and his entire team from corporate had came in and had dinner at Sea Rocket Bistro with us. And he had given me a proposition and said, I'm opening this restaurant called Gabardine. It's a Portuguese seafood restaurant in Point Loma, which is a Portuguese fishing village. Since I'm number one seafood chef, that makes you number two seafood chef. I think the two of us could open up a great restaurant. And I had made a comment. I was like, I think people are calling me number one there, Brian. And I said, but this opportunity sounds intriguing, and I'd love to have another conversation. And fast forward a few months down the road, we went to work and partnered as business partners on the project, and it was a lot of fun. And then I ended up heading to Mexico and really putting my focus on my restaurant in Tijuana. So yeah, I think he's great. I get to catch up with him every once in a while when I'm in San Diego visiting.
I love the network of chefs and relationships and friendships. And so after spending time in San Diego, you came back to Spokane and you opened up Zona 2016, I believe it was. And I read a quote. You said that it was the smallest restaurant I'd ever opened, but I didn't have any money. Chris Batten actually gave me a note to open up the restaurant because it was his building. It took a chance on me. So take us back to Zona. Someone giving you a chance. How did that all come together? Our students love these entrepreneurial stories.
Yeah, I was humbled that year. Granted, being on Top Chef was an incredible opportunity, but leaving San Diego was bittersweet. I had lots of connections there. My daughters live there. I had Crash and Burned, a restaurant that opened up as best new restaurant, best new bar program. I won Eater Chef of the Year that year, and then went on Top Chef. And my partners decided that they didn't want to wait for what could come from Top Chef. They decided to close the restaurant early. And it was tough, man. It was really tough. And being in my mid 30s and not sure what I want to do, I had this kind of crossroad of, do I go and live full time in Mexico? My restaurant in Tijuana is doing absolutely amazing. I love Mexico. I was thinking about maybe going to Mexico City or Guadalajara because I had great friends there and a lot of mentors and people that I looked up to in the culinary industry. But my family was like, you should really just come home for a couple of years and see what the culinary scene's like up here. There's not a lot of well-known chefs, and you can make a really good mark for yourself. And I ended up coming to visiting and decided not to leave. And I had met Chris Batten, who was a real estate broker, and he owned a few buildings downtown. And at first he started showing me other people's buildings and sitting through a lot of meetings with me and other real estate brokers. And after a while, he just said, hey, I've got this space available. It's only 700 square foot. We're putting in a incubator brewery and a tap room in the space. I think it could be a good fit. And I said, I don't know, craft beer and ceviche. I don't know if that's going to work. But he said, hey, your rent will be, $700 a month. I'll loan you the cash to build it out, and you can pay me back over the term of the lease at 5%. And I was
I'm in. Yeah.
Better than the bank.
Yeah.
And I was going through a divorce at the time, so that made things even more difficult from a financial standpoint. And he was just very generous, and he did exactly what he said he would do, and he helped me. And he's still to this day my landlord, and ended up investing in the company as a partner when we reopened after the pandemic in a new location, a much larger location. Now we're in a 3,000 square foot space. But yeah, I was able to pay the restaurant off in a matter of 1 year.
Wow.
I was completely debt free. I was able to turn my financial situation completely around. But there was a point where I was just like, man, this really sucks. I'm opening up a tiny little restaurant. I just closed a $2 million restaurant, and I'm opening up a restaurant that costs less than 20 grand to open. And I put my head down and I focused, and that one little small concept turned into now 5 different restaurants, multiple opportunities where ski resorts and wineries asked me to come and consult, and I'm able to, generate other sources of income. I've been invited to lots of TV shows. I've been in the magazines, the newspaper, all that stuff. Just like I was in San Diego, and it all started with a little itty bitty restaurant serving 5 ceviches, a torta, and a street food snack. To then, receiving nominations for James Beard Awards. So, my advice to culinary students is you don't have to start big.
It's just great advice. Great advice. What was the what was the theme at Zona? What did you want to accomplish there, given everything you just shared? Just serve great food and get people excited.
Yeah, I wanted something ultimately, I didn't want to go in that space, right?
Yeah.
Wanted was another big restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So going into that space wasn't where I needed to be. It wasn't where I wanted to be. It was where I needed to be.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
And the result of that, hyper focusing on something small, which is what quick service restaurants are, what they do, right? You have a small menu, you become an expert and you execute those flawlessly every single time. I didn't need to have 12 cooks. I could make the food, I could run the food, I could bust the food, I could wash the dishes all on my own, right?
Yeah.
My overhead low. It meant that if I wanted a day off, I didn't have to pay somebody else. I could close the restaurant.
Great model.
It's a great model, right? And every single restaurant that I've opened up since then has all been counter service, with the exception of our new Zona Blanca is a sit down restaurant. But it is still that, it's a very loud environment. It's exciting. It should remind you of Baja. We're trying to throw a party every single day, and we want people to feel like they're on a food vacation.
I love that. Talk about when you brought lobster rolls to Spokane. I mean, that's incredible. High Tide Lobster Bar, right? A few locations. Yeah. And then you work with Travis, right? Brewmaster I love TT's website, you guys
Thank you.
You guys look like brothers on that landing page.
Yeah. No, his beard's a little longer than mine, but yeah, Travis and I actually met at Zona Blanca. He was one of the breweries inside the incubator, and so we got to know each other quite a bit while he was brewing beer, because the entrance to my my ceviche joint was through a dive bar in the back, and then you have to go through my little ceviche counter to get to the brewery. Mind you, we were on a very interesting street. On the left-hand side of us was a homeless shelter, and on the right side of us was a chop shop for Lithia. So we weren't exactly and we had a railroad that was running right along our building. So it was pretty seedy area. Well, he said, I want to open up my own brewery. My lease for the incubator is up. Would you be interested in consulting? And I said, yeah, I'll take a look and we can find something. And he started looking around at different places. We started talking about what the menu could be like. And then he asked me if I just wanted to be his partner. And so we went 50-50 on the concept, and we built out a 6,000 square foot brewery and barbecue joint. And we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, I knew how to make barbecue, but if I'm being honest, I had probably cooked a total of 10 briskets my entire life, or smoked 10 briskets. I've cooked lots of brisket for corned beef and pastrami, but I've never smoked at barbecue style more than 10 ever. And we opened up on Father's Day, and there was a line that was over a quarter mile long.
Wow.
And it was game on. We were running like crazy. And then later that summer, I opened up High Tide Lobster Bar, and High Tide Lobster Bar was kind of the craze of the town. There was nothing like it here in Spokane. It's funny, people here don't even think that they can get lobster, which if Vegas can get any ingredient in the world, so can Spokane. Our airport is literally 14 minutes away, and I can fly anything in here at any time. But yeah, I opened it up in an even smaller space. It was 296 square feet.
My Lord. Wow.
A little coffee shop in the Skywalk.
Wow.
So we're, in a town where the weather gets really bad during the fall, winter, and spring. So there's all these bridges that connect buildings throughout the entire part of downtown.
Yeah.
So those bridges are called skywalks. And right at the base of the skywalk is where I had this inside of a bank building. It was hard to get to. And I opened this thing up really quickly. And for the first 30 days, every single day, we ran out of lobster. And we ran out of lobster within 2 to 3 hours.
Wow.
It was absolutely insane. We could not keep up. Our space wasn't big enough. We didn't have a walk-in cooler. The amount of lobster that you need to sell as many rolls as we were selling, I needed a lot of space and I couldn't find any. So I ended up working with a purveyor out of Canada that was bringing lobster from the East Coast, which is the same as Maine lobster, just in like X amount of miles across the border in Canada.
Sure.
They took my recipe, mass produced it, packaged it for me, and shipped it over, fully cooked. So I was able to mass produce, and I mean, we were probably selling between 500 and 600 rolls a day. When we first opened up, there was lines that went from building to building to building to get to our place. And then we opened a second location in an old Wonder Bread factory, which we have now turned into a food hall with Ethan Stoll. And that's when we really kind of got crazy. And we were just, we were moving close to 1,000 lobster rolls a day, which was absolutely wild. And then that all came to a close when, the first year of COVID, when we weren't allowed to work and prices went through the roof, and we went from paying, almost $300 a case for our lobster to over $1,200 a case. And we decided to close the doors, and then it took about a year and reopened in those locations, Uno Mas Taco Shop, which was a great pivot for us.
Yeah, you said that it was born out of necessity as a reaction to the pandemic and the desire of,
we had a lease we had to cover, and our landlord is from Denver, and not that he's a bad landlord, he's a lawyer. And he wrote his contract, and his contract was very adamant about, you're going to pay your rent. And I mean, he was helpful in some ways, but we needed to make sure that we reopened and honored our obligations. And so we did. And now we have Uno Mas, and it's a campestre style taco shop. So, really focusing on flavors from like Guadalajara and Jalisco. And it's been absolutely great. We have street tacos, but then we have what we call the big ass taco, and it's a quarter pound of meat per taco, and it's pretty big taco. So
it's enough to get me up to Spokane. You're gonna be in Aspen soon, right? Food and wine.
Yeah. I leave tomorrow afternoon.
Oh my gosh.
To fly up there and prepare for a dinner that I'm doing with Chef Byron Gomes, who is on season 18 of Top Chef.
God, congratulations, buddy. That's amazing. That's amazing. The weather has been nuts. I gotta warn you, there's been a lot of rain in Colorado. So we'll
fine with that. Washington, we got a lot of rain. It rained. So I just did I was doing a dinner for somebody who works for Microsoft. Their son was graduating high school, and so I drove over to Seattle and cooked for them in their backyard, and it was raining on us the whole time.
Yeah,
they were trying to flip tomahawk steaks in the rain. It was,
oh gosh. Well, that's the Northwest, man. That's the Northwest. I wanted to talk a little bit about collaboration. This is another quote from you, and I quote: "I love collaborating and camaraderie amongst chefs." Beautifully said, by the way. We all cook on different levels. I guarantee that there's someone in this city that can do something better than me. And the exciting thing about collaborating is growth. Great lesson. How is growth, and how does, I should say, how does collaboration continue to help you grow?
I mean,
you're doing it tomorrow. You're doing it this week. Yeah,
exactly. Without being said, right. You're around other people who work in the same industry as you, who are arguably no more or no less than and you're coming together and cooking, and you're sharing moments, you're sharing ideas, you're sharing techniques. Even if you're just in a room full of a bunch of chefs and you're watching them cook, there's likely things that you're going to pick up.
Sure. Yeah.
There's tricks, and not all of us have worked for Rene Redzepi, right? Yeah. Not all of us have worked for Roland or Daniel Boulud, right? Like, and every single one of these chefs have different styles of how they do the same thing.
Yeah, sure.
And so even, in my kitchens, when I hire a chef and they come in, they say, this is how, we've done this specific thing for many years. I'd like to show you it. And you tell me what you think. It's exciting, and I learn from my dishwashers. I learn from my line cooks. I learn from my servers. But to be able to go into a kitchen and work next to other chefs who, I try to work in as many kitchens as I can, or collaborate with as many chefs as I can that have done better than I have in my career. Because again, forward growth, movement, that's all very important to me. But it seems to be that anytime I'm cooking with other chefs, there's a lot more that comes out of that kitchen than just cooking.
Yeah. Life lessons too. Yeah. I love that.
There's the opportunity to support a community, or support each other, or them support it. Yeah. Having my son in the hospital, I can't tell you how many chefs have reached out and just send me their blessing and love, and send me, little gifts, for future little chef. It's pretty cool. I mean, Rene Redzepi reached out to me. I've never even met him face to face.
Oh, that's beautiful. I just got a chill. Wow.
Me a message just said, man, I hope your little boy is doing great. Congratulations on such an amazing blessing. The ladies in the NICU are angels. Everything's going to be okay. And he had no reason to reach out to me whatsoever, and
what a beautiful thing. Yeah. Yeah. And you said support. It's near and dear to you to give back as well, right?
It is.
Charity is important. Yeah. Yeah.
I've been, awarded incredible opportunities, and I take as much time as I can to give back to my community, or give back to those in need. And a lot of it started with, helping out with No Kid Hungry and whatnot. And then I focused some of my attention on cancer, and supporting, women who are in need, and things like that. And it's amazing what a chef's can do. And it costs us very little at all, but our time.
Just your time. Yeah.
And it's pretty remarkable. I mean, even when I lived in San Diego, I worked with Olivewood Gardens. And, I'd go out there and I'd teach kids about nutrition, about, instead of drinking a Red Bull, eat an apple.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
You don't think that sticks with any of them, but it does. And then you get the opportunity to teach their parents the same thing, and show them how to grow vegetables in a garden, and how it can be this bonding moment for you and your kid, but also provide a healthier way of living. Those are the things that are really, that warm my heart, is just seeing people thrive and be healthy and be happy.
Well said and meaningful. You've also said there's an opportunity to do something, and there's a far greater responsibility as a restaurateur in this city. It's all about training. It's about love, and it's about support. So that sort of punctuates everything that you've been sharing with us.
Absolutely.
So thanks for that work. And I've just got a couple more questions for you. I'm just fascinated. What's a great mindset mean to you?
I mean, mindsets is perspective, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like we could both look at the same situation, and one of us could see it as a problem, and one of us could see it as an opportunity.
Yep.
And it's really all about how you talk to yourself. I mean, I can't tell you how many people in the kitchen I hear degrade themselves. Oh, I'm so stupid, I'll never learn. Yeah, you're telling yourself exactly what's going to happen. You got to start saying, hey, I can do better next time.
Sure.
I can do this better. I'm better than this. I can solve this problem. It may take me a little bit longer. we're all reactive, but how we react to hard situations is really how we're going to move forward.
Well, it's how we define ourselves, right? It's our legacy ultimately, right? Hey, before we wind down, any cool secrets or funny stories that you can share from season 13?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you this. I'm very happy I got the opportunity. It was an incredible opportunity. It was definitely filled with a lot of unreasonable expectations, which is life, right? In all reality, no one hands you the perfect hand, if you will, in a card game.
Sure.
You got to work with what you have. And Top Chef definitely showed me that, right? You can either, you can make lemonade or you can let the lemon spoil, figure it out. There's somebody else will figure it out if you don't. But the relationships that I got from that show are incredible. I mean, I don't know if you follow any of the guys that were from my season, but Jeremy Ford got a Michelin star.
Yeah.
Philip Franklin Lee, who, by the way, they played clown music when they were talking to him on the season, and he has a Michelin star for sushi bar and another Michelin star for pasta bar in his LA restaurant. And then he's got, I think, 5 sushi bars between LA, Austin, Seattle, one's in Canada, and one's in Miami. And then he has multiple pasta bars. Just absolutely crushed it. And then Kwame was my roommate. And Kwame Onwachi in New York right now, I mean, Tatiana by Kwame is just getting every accolade you could imagine. He got the nod from 50 Best. He's in the New York Times. He got a couple stars there. He's just absolutely crushing it right now. And even, Karen in Boston, our season was just stacked with some amazing.
Your season was insane. You're in that group. I mean, congratulations, Chef. And it's about those relationships which will continue, forever, really. So
no, it's great. I mean, I can't tell you any crazy stories that you guys didn't see on TV. Well, I guess there is one. I ended up, I'm allergic to avocados.
Oh gosh.
I was
Baja cuisine, allergic to avocados.
Yeah. I've never tasted my own guacamole.
Oh my gosh.
Thank God for recipes, right?
Right.
So, what they do is at the end of a show or a day of shooting, they will do some like recap questioning.
Sure.
Right. You'll see everyone's doing whatever, and then there will be somebody sitting in a room just talking about an experience in that moment. Right. So that's where that comes from. So I'm in the Roosevelt Hotel in Los Angeles, right along the Walk of Stars or the whatever, Hollywood Hall of Fame, whatever it is. And Sofia Vergara is getting her star for Modern Family. And we all know she has a pretty distinct voice and very loud.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're having to stop so many times because she's like, oh my God, thank you so much for blah, blah, blah. That's my worst Sofia Vergara impersonation ever. But
oh my God.
we're having to stop because she's too loud. The cameras are picking up. The mics are picking up what's happening. And so they're trying to keep me awake. It's later in the evening. I'm trying to drink Red Bulls and just stay awake. We finish, I think it was like 2 or 3 hours of interviewing. And I go up to the boardroom where all the other chefs are dining. And I'm so hungry, I just start filling my plate with stuff. And I pick up this one container. I was like, everyone done with this? And they're like, yeah. And so I just start eating out of the container. And I don't realize until like 6 bites.
Oh no.
And I got really sick. And I passed out and started throwing up. and I begged them not to send me to the hospital.
Yeah.
I think I got it all out. We're fine. Please, please, please do not send me to the hospital. I do not want to get kicked off the show. And sure enough, they let me stay. And I think some people got in trouble for it, but yeah, almost didn't make it during that show. It was pretty wild.
So, that's a great story, and a thankful story too.
Yeah.
A lot of chefs I talk to, most chefs I talk to, towards the end, I have to ask: motorcycles, music, or both?
Well, I would say both, because I don't ride a road bike. I ride dirt bikes, and music. I love music in general. I feel like there's always music playing in my life.
Yeah.
And there's always a memory attached to almost every song, or there is a feeling that you're having that applies to the song that you're listening to. And it's remarkable.
I love that. My podium changes all the time. U2's usually on it somewhere, but if I had to ask you your quick podium, what would be number 1, 2, and 3 greatest bands of all time?
Oh, greatest bands of all time. Greatest bands.
You're a Washington boy.
Yeah, Nirvana.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, obviously short-lived. Rolling Stones, Queen.
Oh my gosh. We got two of the same. My podium's U2, Nirvana, and Queen. Saw Queen in Seattle on their first tour. I'm not going to tell you the year because then you'll get my age.
Awesome.
One of the few people I know that saw Freddie Mercury live, right? Back in the day. Great music. Wow. Great list. One more question for you, Chef. Name of the show is The Ultimate Dish. We've already talked about, ingredients and technique, but in your mind, at least today, in this moment, what is the ultimate dish?
I said it before. It's the one I've not made.
I love it. I knew you were going to say that, but I had to ask. What have you not made? If you had to, because I'm not going to let you off the hook.
If it's something that I've made, the ultimate thing that I'll say the ultimate thing I like to eat.
Oh, even better. Even better.
Anything raw with lime, salt, and chilies.
We're more alike than we're not. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. We haven't had that one yet. I love it. What do you got? What are you guys going to make in Aspen?
Oh goodness. Let's see. Let me pull up my thing here. So I'm going to do venison with pickled papaya, salsa nigpek, mint, and oregano sea salt. And then I'm going to do a scallop tostada where I'm going to take burnt onion and morita oil and bring it up to smoke point. And then I'm going to singe the scallops with that. And it's going to go on a tostada with mayonesa de chapulines, which is like cricket mayo, leeks, and buzz button.
Unbelievable. I'm not sure Aspen's ready for you, but
I don't know. I'm sure they're ready.
Chef, thank you so much for spending time. This was just a delight. Really, really respect and appreciate you, and continued great success. If you're ever all the way down to Boulder, I hope you let me know.
I will. Thank you so much for bringing me on the show, and this was a pleasure of mine.
Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Dish Podcast, brought to you by Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Visit escoffier.edu/podcast, where you'll find any materials mentioned during the podcast, including notes, links, and other resources. You can also browse other episodes and subscribe.